Let's get into this. We're going to start with CBS. This was done. This mock draft was done yesterday, 4:15, and by Jeff Kerr. And let's go. Let's take a look at what he did in the first round and who he had the Buffalo Bills taken at number 27. So let's see who they took here. Pick number 27 for the Buffalo Bills, Bijan Robinson. Wow. This is a I'm going to start with you, Sean, because this is an interesting conversation. If Bijan was to fall to number 27, we got to have this conversation. I believe this young man is a generational type player. What's your thoughts here? You going to take Bijan, or are you going to maybe? I'll tell you what, you can get a lot of draft stock, right? You can trade back. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be drooling to get this young man. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I know a lot of people definitely want him, and a couple of people behind us, like the Chiefs and probably the Bengals, would like to take him too, so they might trade up. But again, it doesn't make sense for us to get him. Yeah, he's a generational talent, but I mean, running back in the first round, you might get lucky and get a Brees Hall, but again, you have to remember we don't run the ball like that. You pay $300 million for Josh Allen. It's stupid to run the ball 20 plus times a game, and that's probably the kind of bulk that this guy's going to need to be successful in the league, just like Brees Hall was. Not now he tore his ACL. He might not be the same player next year anyway. So there's always that risk when you draft any player, really, but especially a running back that's a generational talent who's always touching the ball. But again, none of this matters. You could draft Robinson. You could draft Adrian Peterson in his prime. If you don't have an offensive line that's good in front of you, it just doesn't do anything for you. And we got Damian Harris. You drafted a running back 3 years in a row. You wasted a draft pick and another player on Naheem Hines.
Yeah,
and it's just like it's not a necessary position of need right now. Again, people talk about, we took care of the offensive line. All we did was sign a bunch of backups. Right guard, our starting right guard's a backup, our right tackle's a backup, and all their backups are backups. So
we just signed another depth piece too on Friday. So I don't get it.
Which is good, but we have no true starter who's going to make a difference on the offensive line. So yeah, Robinson, generational talent.
Look at the Chiefs taking my boy too.
Well, now if our offensive line was already a top 10 offensive line and it was a possibility to get him, I'd be, absolutely, let's give it a shot. Why not give it a chance? But just picking up backups on the O-line, I wouldn't waste – not that it's a wasteful pick for another team, but for us, I just don't see the sense in it. And people can get mad all you want, but you can't be happy with what the offensive line is at right now. I don't know. I wouldn't pick it. I'd be kind of upset. But, again, he's a generational talent, so you have that in the back of your mind. For me, no. Sorry.
No. Let me throw it to you, Brett, for your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of other areas that Buffalo needs to look at early in the draft, especially with the offensive tackle position as well as the defensive line. One thing we haven't really talked about is, and this is something that has been said on a couple of other channels, is Buffalo has one defensive end that is signed past next year, and then they don't have any defensive tackles that are signed after next year. So we might need to build up our defensive line again, too. So there's a guy in Kancey from Pittsburgh who is available as well. That could be another option for Buffalo to go after. And then Zay Flowers, I would be so upset if Zay Flowers goes to the Kansas City Chiefs rather than Buffalo picking him.
You and me both, brother.
But don't get me wrong. I think Bijan Robinson on the right team is a great fit. I just don't think that is a fit for Buffalo.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Jake. What's your thoughts on Bijan? And we'll go back to you, Brett. Sorry.
Well, first off, I want to address this. So Trek Reviewer, actually, it was CJ Spiller was our last first-round running back. But Marshawn, too, I mean, only a few years before that. It does seem like the Bills, like every 3 years, seem to take a running back in the first or second round. And I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason behind it, but for whatever reason, they just seem to fizzle out pretty quickly. It seems like those guys that have a little bit of a chip on their shoulders seem to succeed a little bit more here in Buffalo. I mean, most recently, you look at Freddie Jackson and what he did, undrafted out of Coe College. So I just feel like in today's game especially, and with how the Bills' offense is structured, It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I totally understand the conversation that he's a generational talent. He's basically Saquon Barkley 2.0. But the problem is there's so many other needs. And essentially, we just gave James Cook the keys to this backfield. So, second round pick last year, why are we already going to take a guy in the first round this year? It just doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. We also, on top of that, I mean, we have 3 backs right now that offer a different dynamic. We have James Cook, who is that shifty, outside zone running back who can also catch passes out of the backfield. He's a little bit of both. Then you have Damian Harris, who's your power guy. He's your goal line back, right? And then you have Nyheim Hines, who offers the return value, maybe a little bit of slot play. He could do a little bit of everything. So right now, we have those 3 guys in our arsenal. I also just heard that we brought Latavius Murray in for a workout last week. So I'm not sure if the Bills are totally convinced on the running back room, but to me, looking from the outside in, looks pretty solid at that position. And I think it's as good as it's going to get right now, especially with how our offense is structured. I just think right now we got to look at other areas. If you're going to get a weapon for Josh Allen, I'd rather it be a tight end than a running back. Tight end, receiver, give him a receiving option, an actual receiving option, not a running back out of the backfield. We're not the New England Patriots where we're going to be shifting in 6 different running backs every game. You know what I mean? So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I totally get the whole, hey, if he's there, you got to have a conversation, which I agree with, because that's, that could be a real good hit if you get this guy. And you don't want to let another team like the Bengals, who Joe Mixon, not sure what's going to happen with him. They end up taking him. Maybe he shines there and he has a hell of a year and goes off and he's the next Corey Dillon or whatever, So it is tough to see, if he's at this point and you let him walk and another team takes him in the AFC, especially like the Bengals. But I just feel like there's so many other gaps, specifically at receiver and at the offensive tackle position, that we need to fill before that. Even linebacker. I mean, we did sign AJ Klein officially, but I still think that is a need that's probably top 3 on our team right now.
I would have took Mayer over him, honestly, if he was still there.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah. Even Dalton Kincaid.
So at 27, Jake, I mean, you've been talking Zay Flowers up.
Love him.
From the time we started doing mock drafts or talking about college players. Would you take Zay at 27?
Absolutely.
Would that have
Definitely
been your pick based on who was left here?
No question. I'm
going to circle, but before I give my opinion, I'm going to circle back to Brett because I know you had another thought there, sir.
Yeah, I was going to kind of chime into what Jake was saying about the running back position. I think right now we're at a time in the NFL where the running back position isn't utilized as much as it was in the early 2000s. And the running backs that we took in the first round back in the day, there's guys like CJ Spiller and Marshawn Lynch. And then I look back to, he wasn't in the first round, but Willis McGahee too, and Travis Henry, the guys like that. Those are guys that we utilize so much. And now we're at a point in time in the NFL where we use our passing game to set up the run. And I don't think that we necessarily need a running back in the first round. Maybe later on in the draft, we could grab somebody like his teammate
Roshan.
I couldn't think of the word, but Roshan. But if you grab him later in the draft, I would love that. But I just don't see it as a top even 3 rounds pick for the Buffalo Bills.
I'm wearing that Texas orange for these
shows
that we're talking about. Let me just ask you guys real quick. So I know Sean would probably shut the show off. He'd probably jump off our show if they took Bijan Robinson. Jake, are you going to be completely upset if they were to take Bijan Robinson? Is this one of those things you're like going into work and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we took him? Or are you going to be excited?
I think there could be worse picks, which is kind of crazy to say. Again, this guy's a generational talent. Like he can be him if we take him. But I just feel like right now, with how we have this set up, a lot of times players succeed based on the situation they're put in. I feel like here in Buffalo, his value will never be met. So that's my biggest issue with it. I will be a little disappointed if we do take him. But at the same time, I'll be slightly excited because I just know how good he can be. I'm not going to say that word. Maybe I'll say it later on in the show. But I think that's going to be a very big internal struggle with me because in the back of my mind, it's like, wow, we just got Saquon Barkley. And everyone's been talking, hey, maybe the Bills should trade for Saquon Barkley. But to me, it's just like, gosh, I mean, with Zay Flowers on the board, with Michael Mayer on the board, you got other guys on. I mean, even Kalijah Cansey. You look at maybe moving Ed Oliver. Like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, this is just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. For me, I mean, look, my dad's listening. I know my dad would love to take Bijan Robinson. He's been wanting us to take a running back in the first round for a few years now. But Dad, I can't agree with you here. And it really comes down to what you think is the biggest need. For me, it's 1A and 1B for me is a linebacker, and I know that's going to be different for some of you guys, and an offensive tackle. That's my 1A, my 1B. And I don't care if AJ Klein, I mean, come on now. He can fill in, and he probably is one of the better run stoppers with our linebackers. But I just feel we need a bigger player in that middle. So for me, if he dropped, I would say what I said at the start of the show. I'm going to move back. I'm going to get a bunch of picks for this guy. I'm going to get a couple. I'm going to move up in the second round big time so I can still get a offensive tackle and hopefully get my linebacker of choice. That's just my opinion. Sean, I know you'd be completely upset. Just real quick, what are you hoping that they're going for right here in round one? You see who's left on the board at this point. And we did have an offensive tackle, Harrison, who we've talked about, who was highly rated as an offensive tackle. I can't tell whether or not it looks like our other guys are available too that we talked about.
Yeah, I mean Darnell Wright, he was listed at like what number 70th pick last draft, and they picked him at 19. So interesting, but they still have DeJuan Jones out there somewhere.
Bergeron.
And again, I just think it goes back to even the smallest level of football. The most important position is offensive line, defensive line. You can't move, you can't push without them. So getting a running back, like even if we drafted Breece Hall last year, like I always mention, sure, he's phenomenal, but he wouldn't have gotten nearly as much load as he did on the Jets because the Jets have a terrible quarterback. They had young weapons who don't have a good quarterback with them. So they had to rely heavily on Breece Hall. Once he went down, you saw what happened. I know the Chiefs want him bad, so they might want to trade up, and that would make sense for the Chiefs. It makes sense for the Bengals. It makes sense for the Eagles because they have phenomenal offensive lines. So all three of those are top 5.
Yeah, that's a good point,
and
Sean.
It would make sense for them. For us, we're not even 15. So and Josh Allen makes our line look good, better than what they actually are. So it's just for those reasons, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to hear, again, I see some folks out in the channel. If you're new to our show, our channels, please give us a like, comment, and hit that subscribe button for all of us. Again, Nickel City Mafia, Go Bills Podcast, and Red, White, and Bills. We appreciate it. Want to hear what you think of this expert's pick at number 27. Are you going to be happy if Bijan Robinson is taken at the 27th pick by the Buffalo Bills? Real quick, Brett, close it out. What did you want? Based on what you see here, what's left on the board, who are you going with at 27?
Yeah, there's a few guys on the board still. I say Zay Flowers or even Cansey. I mean, we got to think about what's a big need for Buffalo. Defensive line is going to be a major need within the next couple of years, as well as wide receiver. We still need somebody that can give us some yards after catch, which is something that Buffalo is at the bottom of the NFL in. So I'd be happy with a wide receiver or a defensive lineman.